Well, I've had time to calm down since I finished doing the last video. I've also had time to recheck that Libeldra thread about Razorwind, and there are a few details that I forgot to mention that make Razorwind even more crap in comparison. First things first, there's only one Pokemon that learns it that can get stab on it, and that is Zangoose. Now, Zangoose's special attack is nothing to write home about, so Razorwind is definitely out of the question for that guy. And it's out of the question for everything else too, since there's no point in using a normal move if you don't get stab on it. That's common knowledge. And don't I ever hear you talk about my Body Slam Venusaur that I'm using in this LP. Everything goes in-game, especially when it comes to someone with a rather narrow attacking move pool like Red, Blue, and Yellow Venusaur. Now things have gotten better since then, but in that generation the main draw was getting Sleep Powder, which unfortunately in Red and Blue comes at level 55. But I'm getting close! Only 3 levels left! But as for those who get a non-stabbed Razorwind, well, the highest special attack you're gonna see it with is a base of 90 thanks to Shiftry, and Shiftry's certainly not gonna use it since it's an 80 power move that takes 2 turns to use, and it's a normal type to make it all worse. So if Shiftry is not gonna use it, if Zangoose is not gonna use it, then no one ever will. Oh, but my favorite. Razorwind's accuracy wasn't always 100. In the first 2 generations, it was 75. So you have 60 power per turn back then, and it still takes 2 turns. For 60 power, it's the same as Swift. Okay, so now I'm on the 3rd floor, which is the final floor when it comes to going up, because I've also got to explore the basement after that. Now, how to get to the basement is that in the southern part of this floor, there are 2 gaps in the walls, which take you down to different areas of the dungeon. There is one of them that takes you, I think it takes you somewhere in the 2nd floor, and the other one takes you to an area on the 1st floor that you can't access on your first time through. I mean, first time through the 1st floor, not first time through the dungeon. But yeah, that area on the 1st floor leads to the basement, which contains the secret key, which leads to the gym. Okay, so now I'm gonna press this switch, and those are the gaps I was talking about. The first, there's a trainer to fight. And now, to be honest, I don't remember which gap leads where, so I'm gonna save before testing a gap. And after that, I'm going to look out first for the gap that leads to the 2nd floor, from which I can get back to the entrance, because the thing is, my bag, I think, is starting to get pretty full, and there's lots and lots of loot in the basement. So if I don't want to run out of room in my bag just as I'm about to pick up the key to the gym, well, I think a visit to the Pokemon Center is in order. Now on to another subject. Yesterday I was thinking about how moves that prevent switches work. You know, like Mean Look. Technically, it's the Pokemon that's too intimidated by the opponent to switch out, but I thought it was the trainer that had the control over when the Pokemon was brought in and then switched out. So if the trainer is in control, how can a move used on the Pokemon have any effect? Like, you know, the Pokemon's too scared to get back into its ball, but the trainer calls him back anyway, and there's nothing the Pokemon can do about it. How does that work? And in the case of a move like, say, Spider Web, well, the way I see it is that when the Pokemon is recalled, it's converted into energy. Now, I've tried, and you cannot stick energy onto a Spider Web. So, how does the Pokemon resist the being recalled if it's, you know, transformed into energy? And no, that makes no sense at all. The more I think about it, the less sense it makes. Oh, and what makes no sense too is that room that has nothing down there. Talk about your stupid dead end. So all that's left to do now is to check out those 2 gaps in the wall. But back to what I was talking about, for moves like Wrap and Fire Spin, I would imagine that they wouldn't be effective in preventing a switch either, since, well, you're sending energy through fire, not your Pokemon, and for Wrap, well, the Pokemon's gonna be wrapping into nothing once it's converted into energy. So, yeah, I think I'm back in that dead end on the 2nd floor, so I'm gonna head back to the 1st floor and out of the mansion and back to the Pokemon Center to heal and deposit any excess items. Now there's one thing I like to talk about when it comes to, you know, the matter to energy transfer that I was talking about with Pokeballs. You know, I don't know where I've read this, but in the Metroid series, Samus's weapons follow the same kind of principle. You know, for example, you know her beam weapons that have unlimited ammo? Apparently they work by converting surrounding matter into energy, and that's how you can have infinite ammo. Like, you know, it's taking air and converting it into energy, and then you're shooting those little balls of energy. And not a word about the high-end beams in Metroid Prime 2. Those are special. I don't know how they work, but whatever. As for the missiles, hey, I didn't ask for... I just went in front of the door. It's exactly like in part 2, and it even sent me down one tile automatically, except this time there wasn't a ledge to jump off of, which makes it a lot less aggravating. And anyway, I've got a bike now. Back then I didn't have it. But as for Samus's missiles, as I was about to say, they work based on the same principle, but backwards. The arm cannon takes surrounding energy and transfers it into matter, which explains the odd look the missiles had in the Metroid Prime series. Now give me a second. Okay, I've got 15 items in my bag, so I should be all set to complete this dungeon. So now it's time to head back to the Cinnabar Mansion, and this time I'm not... the biggest part is done. I've already explored everywhere on the first 3 floors, so all I gotta do now is head back to those ledges and fall down the left one, since the right one is the one that I took, and it led me back to the middle of the 2nd floor. By the way, that Pineda sprite sucks. It doesn't look like fire on its head and on its tail. Looks like, you know, whatever you call what horses have on their necks and their tails. I'm not a specialist in zoology, so yeah. So gotta press that switch again, and yeah. After that, I am heading down there. I'm gonna save again just to be on the safe side, and you know, Lady Luck sends me a big fuck you, and I don't know. I'm just being paranoid now. There's the trainer. I knew there was one waiting for me right down the hole. Yeah, there shouldn't be anyone here. Tell that to the burglars who are constantly rampaging in this dungeon and then get completely lost, as they told me in the last video. Okay, Electrode, which is supposed to be the fastest threat in the game, but with 23 levels higher, not much of a chance, especially since Gengar is pretty fast itself. And as for Weezing, well, it's always had that nice physical defense, but before the 3rd generation, when it got Levitate, it was weak to Earthquake, which in Red, Blue, and Yellow was one of the very, very few valuable physical moves that could actually land a super effective on someone, because a lot of the valuable physical moves back then were normal, if you can believe it. Okay, that's it for this double dose. Join me next time as I ransack the basement.